Hey guys, welcome in. DawgsHQ post-game show. Thanks for tuning in with us. Georgia 43, Florida 20. The final today, Rusty. Not the game. I don't think most people had that one circled. That's a pretty big margin. 14 and a half the spread. Georgia gets it by 23.
Yeah, I think that Georgia after that first drive, we were like, "Oh boy, here we go again. Here's going to be." I think one of the posters on Dogs HQ was like, "Man, it's going to be a 34-31. Get used to it." And really, man, after that first drive, it was a wrap. Georgia established what they wanted to do. I think, Jake, I think the big thing to take away, kind of that set the tone, was not only that fourth down play, but Georgia's ability to get pressure on Graham Mertz and get him to the ground. That's one thing that I think Georgia has had some issues with a little bit, getting people to the ground. But you're talking about just a physical up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Man, Georgia manhandled Florida.
Yeah, you mentioned that pressure. People have been calling for that all year, man. I mean, they've been waiting for Georgia to kind of break through in that way. Marvin Jones Jr. gets involved. Damon Wilson gets involved.
Damon
Damon Wilson.
Wilson,
Damon Wilson does it with a guy just hanging all over him,
dude.
and is able to power through.
I had to, I swear, as bad as it sounds, I had to make sure that 35 was Damon Wilson. I'm like, is this that's Damon Wilson? Okay, I'm making sure, because if you don't see him that early in the game, and it kind of tells you, what we've talked about, and Jake, you said this as well, like that it's the second half of the season. You've had that bye week. It's time to turn these pups loose, and Georgia did today.
Yeah. Speaking of pups being turned loose, I really liked what I saw from Lawson Lucky out there in the blocking game, man. Looked like he was playing very physically, moving guys around. And frankly, Georgia needs that in the absence of Brock Bowers. They're going to have to do this kind of by committee. Oscar Delp did a fantastic job as well today, but I thought it was encouraging to see Lawson Lucky kind of step in and take care of business as well.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, Georgia just did that to Florida without their two best NFL prospects, and that's Amarius Mims and Brock Bowers. And you're talking about two NFL first round guys, and they didn't have them today, so people had to step up, and that's why you recruit those guys. But Lawson Lucky, man, even at Norcross High School, I watched him how physical he is, and I haven't watched the replay obviously, but I want to see how Oscar Delp, because that's kind of the knock on Oscar Delp. How physical does he want to be? Because that guy can run. He's 6'5". You saw a great one-handed catch, but it looked to me, man, like Oscar Delp today showed why he was. Some people thought he was the number one tight end in the country in his class, because he stuck his face in there. He was attached to the end of the line of scrimmage. He was blocking guys. But Lawson Lucky certainly held his own as a true freshman today.
Well, aside from physicality, man, some big numbers from a guy Georgia's been waiting to get back and into full form, and that's Lad McConkey. Goes for
Mm.
6 receptions, 135 yards, a touchdown, a 54-yarder as his long for the day, 78 yards after contact. You love to see that from that guy. You need him. Like I said, in the absence of Brock Bowers, everybody had to step up. McConkey was one of those guys you've been waiting on it all year, regardless of Bowers or not. In this instance, it's even more important.
Yeah, it's changed the direction and suddenness. I've seen it up close, man. This guy can start and stop on a dime, and his cuts in and out of breaks is what gives people issues. If you don't get your hands on Lad McConkey at the line of scrimmage, you're rolling the dice, because if you get him going and he can put that suddenness on you, he did it today. What a game by Carson Beck. I mean, you want to get real picky. Carson Beck's having a little bit of an issue with these deep middle third throws, and they're going to have to fix that. That's something they're going to have to. But other than that, Carson Beck is flat out dealing. He looks confident. I thought he was great. Even that ball he threw to Lad McConkey, the anticipation, and he had Rush coming from the right. He sidesteps and he throws that thing. He throws him open because he's not out of his break at that point. It almost hits a Florida defender in the back of the head. As there's two guys crossing there. So, man, you kind of see the confidence in Carson Beck. And listen, Jake, I didn't know how it was going to be, man, him going home. You know what I mean? Him going
Sure.
home. I don't care what you say. That's a lot of pressure. He grew up in that place. He played in that stadium. He said today he grew up a Florida Gator fan, cheering in that, as a kid there. And to play this team, to do what he did, and the playmakers around him, Carson Beck, man, Georgia fans have got to be excited about him right now, especially all these next 3 weeks.
Absolutely. I said that going into the game in my prediction, talking about Beck and just the idea of like, hey, man, nerves are not only understandable, they're expected in a setting like this. Going home, playing in, I mean, that was a Carson Beck friendly crowd. I bet you there were a lot of Carson Beck
Oh
folks in
man.
that crowd, man.
Oh,
He
yeah.
had all eyes on him against this team. And you come out and put together a performance like that. Like you said, that deep ball has been a bit of a concern, but otherwise, man, he's taking care of the ball with time. He's able to get it where he needs to be. That's something that you can clean up. And as long as you're not making errant throws and putting George in a bad position with those, I think that that's an okay thing as far as a knock on a guy at this stage.
Yeah, think about this too. His mom and his sister and his family travel every week from Jacksonville to go watch him play all over the country so far. Think about their evening. You know what I mean? You get to sit at home tonight in your house. You just watched your son do what he did to Florida. You got a 20-minute ride home at the max. You know what I mean? Or 20 miles, whatever it is. So kudos to them, man. As a parent, that's just different level. And to watch your kid stick it out, man, when everybody else was probably telling this guy, you need to transfer, you need to leave. And he didn't. And the reason he didn't was he trusted George. He trusted that he was going to have playmakers around him. And that's an important decision. And Carson Beck is you're talking about paying off right now for Georgia and for him, what you're seeing out of him. And as the season goes on, Jake, he's getting better and better. And they're going to need it, man. They got to score points. But I'll say this too. I say this with confidence, man. And we know Kirby Smart choked that thing down in the second half.
Yeah.
I went and looked. The Tennessee game was 24-6 last year. This one was 26-7. You knew they weren't going to be able to score much on you, and you're running the ball and doing a few things here. Mike Bobo, to me, could have scored 50 today easily, and probably was trying to run that clock as much as possible second half, which is the right thing to do. Everybody wants you to score 60, 70. I get it. You know what I mean? We cover it. You want to see the explosive plays, but Kirby Smart will choke the life out of a clock when he knows his defense is in control. And for the most part, the entire day, Georgia's defensive front and secondary was in charge of this game.
Yeah, and like you said, being in control, man. Georgia got punched in the mouth coming out. I mean, it
Sure
really
did.
did. I understood
scripted plays too, man.
Yeah, I understood the concern people had, and I was shaking my head a little bit, saying, "Oh boy, maybe it is going to be one of those." Georgia responds in really, really nice fashion. Defensively on that other side of the ball, we talked about the pass rush a little bit. Javon Bullard leads the way, 7 tackles on the evening. Tyke Smith, 6 for him, 2 tackles for loss from Smile London. And how about a nice block of a punt on that punt coverage from Janelle Aguero, man? These young guys really turning the heat up here in the second half early on.
It's time to turn the pups loose. You know what I mean? Because if you recruit guys like that, Jake, you have to figure those guys are 3 and out. You know what I mean? And you don't, it's time to let them. The days of redshirting that guy, let's get 3 more out of him. Those days are over. So, if you're Georgia and you have plans on playing 15 games, which that's the plan, to play 15 games. I mean, you're halfway through the season when you walk on the field this morning. So, Georgia's got to get these guys ready for the second half of the season. And what do you see? You see Damon Wilson. You see Jonell Aguero. What about Ty Ingram Dawkins? You know what I mean? A strip sack fumble deal, and him being back now. Jake Rowe. We both were texting on the side like, wait a minute, what's going on here? This guy's playing, and we haven't heard anything about him even practicing. But to have him come in and play an impact, and listen, he's not in football shape, and he probably had limited snaps. So after today, and you get him in next week, and it'd be even better. And listen, I don't want to start speculating, but I think Amarius Mims plays next week. I think Georgia got to like, hey, we don't have to. This is not life or death, maybe. And to get him another extra week of rest, you're talking about a 6'7.5" human being. So it's a little different when you start talking about that tension on an ankle. So maybe he had to play today, but Monroe Freeland, again, here we are, 5-star Charles Power from On 3, had him the number 1 rated offensive tackle in the country, and Monroe Freeland. It's time to turn him loose, time to get him some reps. And he certainly steps in right now. You don't see Georgia miss a beat on that. So getting some quality depth. I could go on and on. I watched Micah Morris have a great day. Just on the hoof, just quick glance, and we'll go back and look. I think Tate Ratledge had a fantastic day. I think Tate Ratledge was really good when they would pull him around. They would kind of pin and pull. They would pull him out in space, and then the run block on that 4th and 2 touchdown. Trust and Tate Ratledge just took 2 Florida guys and just shoved them completely down. And that's when they watch that film, Stacey Searles and those guys, there's going to be some high-fiving and maybe a few words on that one, because they just walled those guys off, just manhandled them on that 4th and 2 for that touchdown.
Yeah, you mentioned Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. The comments over here blowing up talking about that guy. And listen, he's one of those guys that I thought coming into this year, man, high expectations around. He has all the talent in the world. Georgia loved him coming out of high school, and it really has just been a matter of health for him, man. I think it's really, if he's able to get that right, this guy is a difference maker and a guy that can continue to allow Georgia to do what it did today, which is get to the quarterback effectively.
And they did it with a front four, man. And then when they have to bring Jamon Dumas-Johnson and Smile Monday, that little cross double-A gap blitz, I mean, they ran it on the first series against Ohio State last year, got Stroud to the ground. They run this thing all the time. And just because you know it's coming doesn't mean you can do anything about it, because those guys can run so much and they're so fast. But I was just watching Gary Danielson. I mean, I don't want to do that.
Wow, you turned in for a little extra Gary, huh?
I want to say that. I was just watching Rick Neuhauser on the after show, quick thing, and he said one thing that stood out to me too, and I think we don't talk about this enough. He said, man, Georgia's one of the best tackling teams he's ever seen. He said they got so many athletes in space. You might get 5 yards, but you're going to the ground at 5 yards. And that's a tribute to Georgia, man. Being physical. We start talking about Bloody Tuesday and tackling. That is something that does not get mentioned enough. When Georgia gets their hands on you very, very often, you're going down, or they're going to hold you until somebody else gets there. And that's a great trait for this Georgia defense.
Speaking of not talked about enough, man, I just don't know what he's got to do to get the love that he deserves. But Daijun Edwards, man, puts together another one, just looking slippery as a snake out there. 95 yards, 2 touchdowns, averaging almost 6 a carry. The guy he shows up lunch pail in hand and gets it done week in and week out.
Yeah, I guarantee you we could take 1,000 Georgia fans right now and take him with his helmet off and say, who is that? And they wouldn't know who it was. I mean, That's just – he's just been out of the limelight. But you talking about invaluable, and you talking about a different team. When Daijun Edwards got inserted into this offense, I think he went for Georgia had 171 yards rushing. I think he was right at 100 today. They had a couple of kneel downs and those type things, lost yardage, but they averaged right at 4.9, I think, a carry today. So Daijun Edwards, Kendall Milton with some physicality. You know, I mean, Kendall Milton, okay, is he the most shifty back? He's not. But, man, you can tell he's running pissed off and he's driving his legs. It's a big dude in person, man. He really, really wanted that touchdown down, and they kept feeding it to him. And I think that's a great thing by Mike Bobo and Kirby Smart to give that thing to it.
I love this from Dylan Brooks. Says Edwards has boxing feet but chose to play football. I couldn't agree more, man. He just that guy just finds it where it's not, man. Not a guy that I would have said NFL, big future. I think he's gonna surprise some people.
No doubt.
Teams are taking note of this, man.
And he can catch a ball out of the backfield. And something more importantly, you saw today where ETN kind of whiffed on Jamon Dumas-Johnson. He calls a sack. One of those plays that he completed to Ladd McConkey. If you go back and watch the game, Daijun Edwards steps right up in there in that A-hole and takes on that linebacker, and he stands him up long enough for Beck to make that throw. That is a big, big deal.
Rusty, before we get out of here, man, quick game balls from you. 2 guys, 1 offense, 1 defense. Who are you handing them out to if you got to choose?
Man, I would have to go Carson Beck because I just knew what he was staring down this weekend. And you had to know he had 1,000 people reaching out to him. Hey, I need tickets. Can't wait to see you. Where y'all staying? Just those type of things. He probably had to dial it in. He was damn almost perfect. Couple throws here and there, but he like I said, Georgia throttled that thing down once they knew what was going on. Tyke Smith, Tyke Smith is a great tackler. He is instinctive. You watch that 3rd down play. It is the exact same play that William Poole made on Alabama in the 4th quarter there when he undercut that dig route and knocked the ball down. And he did it today on a 3rd down against Pearsall. And I thought Tyke Smith played one of his better games today. Got a little bit banged up, but it's going to be okay. And got some guys like Jonell Guerrero and those guys some reps, man. Invaluable today. I tell you what, I guarantee that locker room right now is bouncing. I bet they got some great music going.
Yeah, I bet Dylan Bell wasn't too unhappy about waving at Jalen Kimber while he ran by me. That was the first thought in my mind when I saw that play.
That's two Houston kids too.
Yeah,
2 Houston kids.
Yeah, they go way back.
Yep.
All right, guys, that's it from us over at DawgsHQ. Get over. We'll have full coverage. We've also got our big game special going on right now. 50% off your first year at DawgsHQ or $1 for 1 month. That promo's on all the time. Come over, check us out. Jake, Rowe, and Palmer are going to have you covered on everything tonight. We'll have plenty of reaction tomorrow.
We hope.
Well, we can keep them out of the landing, man. But we've got it all booked up this week. Dogs stay undefeated on the season, man. Looking like a good one right now. Coming out swinging in the second half of the season. We'll keep you covered over at DawgsHQ. Like I said, come check us out. Big game special running right now. 50% off your first year.
As we finish right now, you start looking. Next week is even bigger. I mean, this next week, you want to talk about ramping up?
Smaller. They're not getting smaller.
They're not getting smaller. This game right here, this Missouri game, this is a great win today, and I guarantee you Georgia's celebrating it. But in the back of their minds, they know what is at stake this next week at home, and we're going to have you covered all week.
Absolutely. For Rusty Manziel, I'm Jake Roos. This is DawgsHQ. See you guys soon.